Welcome on in, everybody. Tobin here with you. Thanks for checking us on out. If you guys could subscribe here, that mean a lot to me. Some of you just stopping by, you don't subscribe, and I'm fine with that. I mean, you're not hurting my feelings or anything like that, but it would be nice. I mean, you stop by, maybe you want to stop by again, or maybe you want to tell that guy, hey, go f yourself. I don't know. Maybe that you want to do that in the comments. Whatever. Most of you are pretty positive, though, to be honest with you. I love the community around this, and it's been fun. It's fun, man, and I hope you guys also check out my radio show every single day, the Tobin and Leroy show, weekdays, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., and should be fun. I will not be boots on the ground tomorrow for the Cavs game. I will be back. My boots will be back polished up hopefully next week, as I hope to be back out there for a bunch of games there in December. So very much looking forward to that. The Heat, one, it's a weekend game. Two, it's Art Basel, and I'm not messing with that. You know, those who want to brave the Basel, by all means, you have courage. You have courage. Right now, the in-season tournament, I believe game one is in the books as I do this. It's about 8:30, so the Western Conference game's getting going. But the Pacers got the best of the Bucks, 128-119. I did not watch this. This was at a weird time, 5 o'clock. I was dropping my daughter off at cheerleading. Then I had to go buy some shoes for the kids. I was doing a bunch of daddy stuff. You know, I was in the midst of all that. But I did see it looked like Tyrese Halliburton was trolling Damian Lillard or something like that. Well, listen, stuff, Dame. You know, enjoy that though, dude. A lot of early exits. That's what the Bucks do. So enjoy that, my dude. I wanted to get to a couple of interesting things here in Heatland. The first thing, I don't know if you guys saw this, but Andre Iguodala has a podcast with Evan Turner, strangely enough. And Evan Turner is a bit of a Heat hater. He I don't know if this goes back to like the 2011 Sixers thing. I don't know where this stems from with him. But Evan Turner, not a believer in Heat culture, always poo-poos it, seems to troll. Like there was one of those start bench cuts the other day, cuts Jimmy Butler. He just seems to have an axe to grind when it comes to the Miami Heat. Strangely enough, he does a show with Andre Iguodala, who does love to praise the Heat culture. He speaks very highly of it. I think a guy as professional as Iguodala, who was also part of those Sixers teams, I'm sure, you know what, that's probably where it stems from, you dum-dum. But either way, still good to see them still remain friends. But honestly, Andre, I feel like he could have gone in a different direction. Either way, Andre Iguodala had Jason Tatum on the podcast, big get. And Andre was basically explaining to Tatum from his time with the Heat why they were so effective at basically stopping him and stopping Jaylen Brown. And Jaylen Brown was some article, I got to get into it. Jaylen Brown was talking about Miami and what they were able to do to him. Also how he was able to inspired him to work harder, work the hardest he ever has. One of these where he gets embarrassed. They are telling him he can't go left, and these are true things. And it's good. Those guys will do what they do, and I'm sure if this series comes down to it again, they'll get bounced. So, whatever. But Iguodala, my favorite part about it was not just Iguodala explaining to Jason Tatum why they were so effective against him, but it was also my favorite thing because Jason Tatum's he had just the biggest sourpuss on his face while Iguodala was explaining to him why the Celtics were getting their asses kicked by the Heat in the bubble. It was a beautiful thing. And, game one for life, Jason Tatum with Bam Adebayo blocking your shots, one of my favorite t-shirts. And it will live in infamy. But always going to have to deal with the Celtics and their headlines and all that stuff. And everyone's talking about, oh my God, their offense is amazing. They can't be stopped. They'll do it again this year. They'll do it again, and they'll say the Heat have a 2% chance or whatever. Whatever dance that they want to do with that. And it's fine. We'll deal with that bridge when we come to it. But I want to get to this. So Erik Spoelstra yesterday. When I usually do my game recaps, I don't listen to Spo. I typically just game ends. If it's a road game or if I'm not covering the game, Just game ends, boom, let's go riff on the game, right? But and then I'll go listen. I get the cuts from whoever's producing the game that night. They'll send to me. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. That's interesting. Sometimes, and then sometimes I'll listen to the whole post game. Whatever. I'll kick back. Usually, we'll always listen to the players. And then I'll see the Spo cuts if anything really pops out. I'll give that a gander. But I was alerted that Spo was asked a bunch of stuff about Jovic during the game after the game yesterday. And I was told he had sounded kind of perturbed about it. So I was like, all right, let's go see what he had to say. And I found that a little bit odd. So I asked this individual who had alerted to me about this. And I was like, I wonder why he was asked so much about Jovic. I'm like, was it a beat guy who asked him about it that annoyed him? Or was it or was there foreign media? Because I hadn't even known this until yesterday. I didn't know that the Toronto Raptors head coach was Serbian. I didn't know that. So when he said that, there were questions about Jovic. I was like, was there was there foreign media there? Because as we know, Nikola Jovic recently, some controversy got sparked up because Jovic had done an interview with a Serbian media member, had all these quotes translated, of course, that made it seem like he was, I don't want to say disgruntled, but very disappointed with how his Heat career is going so far. And then he comes out, he does the damage control, all that. So, yes, the Raptors are coached by Darko Rajakovic, who, all right, that is probably why there is media there that's interested in Nikola Jovic. So, anyway, Spo's asked about it. He's asked a question about it by Ira, and he was pretty glowing. But then, he keeps getting asked about Jovic. So I'm going to play these cuts, and we can listen to this together and feel where Erik Spoelstra is at with Nico. Because, honestly, we know that it has been a bumpy ride this year. But Spo had, I thought, some very interesting things to say about their first-round pick from last year. And I think one of the things I find interesting is that he has not even sniffed the rotation. 2, that he is definitely having an effect of having to play center. It's been voiced in this interview. It's been voiced in his past interview. It's been voiced by Jimmy Butler, for God's sakes. But the Nikola Jovic that we saw even in spurts last year, the Nikola Jovic who Jimmy Butler said was walking around with a swagger, his chest out. The guy who we have thought we were going to get is not the guy we have gotten so far this year. And I'm fascinated by it. I am fascinated by this. This is a young player who's looks like he's got, a good frame, got some tangibles, definitely has some sick passing skills, is got some things for the modern game that I think are interesting. But he looks very lost out on the court on defense, and he now looks a little bit deflated on offense. And that was probably his first place where he was at home. And obviously he's been in big stages. He very clearly has an audience back home. This is not a guy that has no pressure on him. So I found this all interesting. Let's just dive into the cuts. So he's asked by Ira about Nico getting some time. This is a very glowing answer, and I thought was a very reasonable answer, and I think probably was a tip. I'll give you a little insight onto Erik Spoelstra from covering him for so many years as I have. Spo has got a little Riley in him in that he's going to try. He will answer a question, but then we'll take it wherever the hell he wants sometimes to hope that it covers the bases so that there is no follow-up. And you better be paying attention because he'll call you out if you ask a question that he feels like he covered already, just so we know where we're at. But if there is some media that's foreign, he'll be a little bit polite, but he's got his limit. Erik Spoelstra has a media patience to a time where if he feels he's covered the grounds and he feels like he's given the answers, especially after a game, he's ready to wrap it up. So to be fair, this was a 6-minute press conference. It was now diving into the 7, 8, 9s. That's pretty long for a post-game press conference. All right, he wants to get it over with. Just to kind of give everybody the scene of where we're at so we have context going into this, because I'm not going to play the full 3 minutes uninterrupted. I want to play cuts, but I will have the questions from the media in there after this first one. The first one was basically, kind of a toss-up, like, hey, Nico got minutes tonight. What do you think?
I felt very comfortable with that. I was going to do that earlier in the first quarter. I would have felt more comfortable getting him in there in the first quarter, but Caleb was on such a run, I didn't want to take him out. But Nico had a couple good moments, his rebounding, his size. I felt that we might have needed a little bit more size for just a small stretch and potentially a little bit of playmaking. We didn't necessarily have to get to that. But he's had 2 very good weeks. And that makes an impression on everybody. And that's all behind the scenes in practices. Once he got back from his Sioux Falls stint, he's really gone to work and he's made some progress, and it won't be linear. That's the thing about a young player who's 20. We feel very encouraged by his progress, but we have to quiet all the noise out there when everybody wants it to be a microwave impact right now. We just want to stay disciplined to the plan. He is getting better, and he's ready for minutes if called upon.
All right, so a lot of positive stuff there from Erik Spoelstra from Nico. There's literally nothing you could take from that and I think be like, that's great. We're improving behind the scenes. Great 2 weeks. Ready when called upon. Hey, give the kid some bleeping time for him to be up to what we want, not a microwave. Which I don't think is just even a message to the fans. I think it's a message to Nico. Like, hey, your time will come. Your time will come. It was actually funny thinking about this game because actually after these questions, he was asked about something about Precious Achiuwa, which was kind of funny because it's like Precious Achiuwa dealt with some of the Nikola Jovic stuff. Different players, but kind of young guys come in raw. I would say Precious is probably a little bit more raw, but more athletic. And has also been criticized, not even by Spo. I don't want to say criticized, but it's been pointed out by Spo and did by Nick Nurse. I remember for a game where it was actually, I think, a game Precious ended up having 25 rebounds against the Heat. He they questioned his motor. They're like, hey, come on, man, you got to bring that effort all the time. And I think what that really comes down to is you have Precious, who is 6'9", bruising, looks like the Hulk, but kind of wants to play like a point guard. So anyway, you have a glowing answer there by Spo. Really nothing you can say like, oh man, Tobin, what perked you up? Did you get? Mind you, I was tipped off by this. I was like, there's somebody who knows I'm a big Jovic fan. It's like, take a listen to this. Like, what do you think? So you have that answer there. Then he is asked by what I'm assuming is a member of the foreign media who is from Serbia. I'm guessing is Serbia or covering, the coach of the Raptors, but also, hey, get some questions on Jovic. Like, what's going on there, dude? Which is their prerogative. I mean, they're there to cover the game. Why can't they ask about a guy who just won a silver medal for their country? So here is he was asked about what improvements has he seen from Nico.
Coach, following the question, with Nico, what kind of what are the biggest improvements that have you noticed in him, especially coming on from the World Cup?
Yeah, I've mentioned it. It's not just the World Cup. All of this matters. It's the physical development, adding 20 pounds, is the mental and emotional development of competing at this level and learning how to handle adversity. It's finding playing time in Sioux Falls. It's all the workouts and improving with his player development, learning our system, learning how to be reliable on both ends of the court. And then we have to all fight against the microwave society. Everybody wants it to happen right now. I'm seeing progress. And everybody's trajectory is different, and that's okay. But he's making progress. We just want to get to work with him. He still is 20 years old, but you see the potential and the upside, and in the meantime, he's becoming more reliable when called upon if needed now.
Okay, so much more fascinating stuff because it really goes into what do you want from this guy, right? Where are you seeing it? And it's like, hey, it's not just the World Cup was nice. It's over, the World Cup. Let's move on from the World Cup. It's about everything here. It's about what we wanted from him physically, which he did. He put on the muscle. Okay. I don't think it's a question of work ethic with Jovic, especially physically. But he does mention dealing with adversity. So dealing with, hey, it's not just your time because you think it's your time, I think is the message there. And then it's about knowing our system. I think that's probably the biggest thing is like, hey, this is not, you can't just be a guy who grabs the ball, goes, and it's freelance all the time. And especially if you don't know the system defensively. A lot of the times, this has been said by a lot of Erik Spoelstra players. If you know what you're doing on defense and you make the stop on defense, Spo will let you go on offense. It doesn't necessarily have to be something set or a play call. If you bust your ass and you make the stop, Erik Spoelstra will let you be that guy who can go and make something happen. But Nico looks a little bit lost. He looks lost. He looks green. He looks young. And it looks like it is really affecting him. It kind of looks like a guy, who is just a little bewildered by the moment right now and now is maybe in the point of overthinking. And I don't know if that's something that Erik has to coach out of him or the staff has to coach out of him or what. But that one stood out to me. The both ends thing is just a big thing. Knowing the system, being on both ends, finding playing time, because that was another thing. Remember when Jovic said in this interview, why did you agree to go to the 5? Because that's where the playing time was, as we've seen. Orlando Robinson stepped in and he's gotten some playing time. There wasn't time at power forward. There isn't space on the wing right now. We have a lot of wings. Caleb Martin, Haywood Highsmith, Jimmy Butler, Jaime Jaquez. You have a lot of these guys right now, so Bam Adebayo. You have all these guys out here. And but we did notice yesterday in the 3 minutes that he got, he was out there with another big. He was not the only big. He was out there with Love and he was out there with Orlando Robinson. And still, he was not it was not the cleanest minutes we've ever seen. So here's the last cut. And this is Spo discussing it's an interesting point where he's like, he can't just be good at where he's comfortable. He has to be good and get better at where he's uncomfortable.
Yeah, just following the question, the last one. I guess that you still have to figure it out, but would you like to use him more as a 4, as a 5? I don't know if...
You asking me or you asking him? I want him to learn how to do both. You become a basketball player. You're a front court player. It's part of the development. I know where he can feel more comfortable now. I understand that. And we're developing that, but I also want him to develop where he's not as comfortable. That's important as well, and that's where we have to guard against all the noise and the narratives outside. It's all part of a plan. He's on board with the plan. The plan will not just be linear all the way through. There's going to be ups and downs, because he's young, but I feel very encouraged by the progress that he's making.
There you go. All right. So that was Erik Spoelstra yesterday, giving us a lot of Nikola Jovic cover. It was he honestly answered in the same amount of time he spent answering Nikola Jovic questions. It was the same amount of playing time Nikola Jovic got yesterday, which is probably why he was exhausted by it by the end. But all fascinating stuff. And again, it's funny going back to that interview where Jovic had said, oh, well, I wouldn't say those things, but it's kind of been echoed about that those things that were said in that interview, we have kind of heard from the coach, have we not? The idea that you have to be good everywhere and you can't just be good where you're comfortable. You have to be good where you're uncomfortable. So I don't know, man. Look, I told you guys this after the recap yesterday. I'm not selling my stock on Nikola Jovic. I don't want to reside on Jovic Island. I feel like everybody's kind of overdone the island thing. I just feel like we're like it's like the Jovic resort. I need a better metaphor for it, but I believe in this kid. I'm gonna stay believing in this kid and thinking that he's gonna develop and turn into something someday. This was a guy I was really hoping out of the. I didn't want the Miami Heat to get rid of him. I was greedy in the Demi Lillard talks. I would have, I was the bozo. I mean, look, I would have given up Jaquez. If we could keep one or the other, I'd give up Jaquez to Jovic. I look like a complete moron by that now. But I still believe in the kid. Gigantic, can pass, plays, when I think he's playing free loose, can play a little bit balls to the wall, but I think he's a little bit lost right now, and I think that's okay. I do agree with Erik Spoelstra. This does not have to be a microwave right now. This is not a team that necessarily needs him right now. And there is 20 years old. There is plenty of time for him to develop. Very young player. But listen, I thought he was going to do something for this team this year. And now Erik Spoelstra says, look, I'm comfortable giving him minutes, which I think is huge because he clearly wasn't early on. So maybe, especially with this Bam injury, we will get more of him and he will have that performance that, will show you that interest. But I don't know. I mean, look, there's other people who think I'm stupid and think he's no good and think that I'm crazy for even putting this kind of investment in him. But I still hope. I still believe Nikola Jovic will bring something to this franchise. As Jimmy, look, you know who I'm going to believe out of anybody? Jimmy Mother Bleeping Butler. And if Jimmy Butler tells me this kid can ball, Caron Butler, he believes in the kid. I love watching, the bond between him and Caron Butler and what he's trying to do with him too. I think there's something that's there. I just think that he's not quite grasping the system of the Heat yet. Thinks that it could just be, why can't I just go and ball? That's not how it works with the Heat. The Heat, it is always, always, always going to be with Spo. Learn your role, get your role down, and that will lead to more. It's always going to be that way for him. It is. Unless you are Tyler Hero, rookie sensation at 19 years old, filling up buckets on the big stage, big onions late. But that was Tyler's job. Tyler's job was to go score the basketball. And if you're not going to fulfill your role, he's not going to trust you with more. It's been that way since Michael Beasley. It's been that way with other players. It was like that with Precious Achiuwa. It's like that with other young guards. Shabazz Napier back in the day. If Spo does not think you are going to execute what he wants you to execute, he's not going to trust you to do the big stuff until you get the little stuff down. And there's a lot. And the thing with the Heat is there's a lot of guys grinding, working their ass off. Look at Haywood Highsmith. How much work Haywood Highsmith did. And they only said last year, Haywood, come in here, guard your ass off against Jason Tatum. And you may only play, 12 meaningful games last year. And that may only turn into 15 meaningful minutes in those games. But you better put the clamps on Jason Tatum to sniff the next year being in the rotation because we don't want to pay the guys that get too expensive. That's how they work. It's a factory. So it's going to be interesting to see where Jovic lies in all this and if he will emerge from all this to get a productive role in his Heat career.